The bruise on my cheekbone had turned a deep purple by the time I arrived at Bellini's. Even with the extra layers of concealer, it was still visible, a reminder of Daniel's temper from last night. I tucked a strand of my dark hair behind my ear, trying to hide the mark as I pushed through the heavy oak doors of the restaurant. "You're late again, Sophia," Marco, the floor manager, hissed as I hurried past. His eyes narrowed on the bruise before he looked away. "Table 7 needs clearing, and Valentina called in sick, so you'll be taking the private dining room tonight." I nodded, already reaching for my apron. The private dining room. My stomach twisted. Reserved for special clients, it meant extra tips, but also unwanted attention from wealthy men who thought their money could buy anything. Or anyone. "Sorry, my brother needed a ride to work," I lied, feeling the weight of it on my tongue. In reality, Joey had spent the morning helping me cover the bruise, his eyes dark with rage. "I'll touch that bastard if he ever lays a hand on you again," he'd promised, his fingers gentle on my face, such a contrast to his words. The restaurant hummed with the quiet conversations of Milan's elite. Crystal glasses clinked, silverware scraped against fine china, and the rich aroma of truffle and garlic perfumed the air. I moved between tables like a ghost, invisible to the patrons except when they needed something. That's how I preferred it, to remain unseen, unnoticed. Safer that way. I was clearing a table when I felt it. That peculiar sensation of being watched. The fine hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and my hands grew clumsy, nearly dropping an expensive crystal glass. Slowly, I turned toward the feeling. He sat in the far corner, partially hidden in shadow. Even from a distance, I could sense his power. It radiated from him like heat. A perfectly tailored black suit hugged broad shoulders, and a crimson tie provided the only splash of color, like fresh blood against snow. 2 men flanked his table, standing rather than sitting, their hands clasped in front of them, eyes constantly scanning the room. My breath caught in my throat as his gaze locked with mine. Dark eyes, nearly black, studied me with such intensity that I felt physically touched by his stare. He didn't smile, didn't nod, just watched. "That's Vittorio Ricci," whispered Elisa, another waitress, suddenly at my elbow. "He owns half of Milan's financial district, and the other half doesn't cross him if they know what's good for them." I pulled my eyes away, forcing myself to continue working. "Why is he here? He doesn't usually come to Bellini's, does he?" Elisa shook her head, her blonde ponytail swaying. "No. First time I've seen him here. Marco is practically having a heart attack in the kitchen. Apparently, Ricci just showed up unannounced with his guards." 2 hours passed, and I managed to avoid the private dining room where Ricci had eventually moved. Other waitresses had been assigned to serve him and his guests who had arrived later. I was grateful for the reprieve, keeping myself busy with the main floor tables, ignoring the occasional glances thrown my way from the partially open door of the private room. It was nearing midnight when Marco grabbed my arm as I passed the kitchen. "Sophia, Ricci is asking for you specifically." My blood ran cold. "Me? Why?" "I haven't even served his table." Marco's grip tightened. "I don't ask questions of men like him, and neither should you. Just go, now." "He's alone. His guests left, and he's waiting." My feet felt leaden as I approached the private dining room. The 2 guards stood outside, their expressions impassive as one opened the door for me. Inside, Vittorio Ricci sat alone at a table meant for 12, an untouched glass of amber liquid before him. Up close, I could see the details I'd missed from a distance. A small scar bisecting his right eyebrow, the heavy gold signet ring on his left hand, the faint lines around his eyes suggesting he was in his late 30s. "Sir," I managed, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening in my chest. "You asked for me?" He studied me for what felt like an eternity, his eyes eventually landing on my bruised cheekbone. I resisted the urge to touch it, to hide it. "Chi ti ha colpito?" he asked, his voice deep and smooth like aged whiskey. "Who hit you?" The question, so direct and unexpected, stole my breath. No one at Bellini's had directly acknowledged my bruise all night. Not even Marco. They'd seen, certainly, but chosen to look away, to pretend. Yet this stranger, this dangerous man, had cut straight through the pretense. I fell. I answered automatically. The lie I'd been telling myself for months whenever Daniel's temper got the best of him. Ricci's eyes narrowed slightly, the only indication that he'd heard me. He leaned back in his chair, one finger tapping rhythmically against the tablecloth. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not allowed." "Sit," he repeated, not raising his voice, but somehow making the word fill the entire room. I sat. "Your name?" he asked, lifting his glass but not drinking. "Sophia Lombardi." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Interest? I couldn't tell. "Lombardi," he repeated, as if tasting the name. "You have family in Milan?" My throat tightened. Something warned me to be careful. "Just my brother, Joey." Ricci nodded slowly, setting down his glass without drinking. "And who does your brother work for, Sophia Lombardi?" Fear prickled along my spine. Why was he asking about Joey? My brother worked as a mechanic, occasionally taking side jobs that paid cash. He never talked about them, and I never asked. We had an unspoken agreement. He didn't question my bruises, and I didn't question his late nights or unexplained cash. "He's a mechanic," I said, keeping my answer simple. Ricci's lips curved into something resembling a smile, though it never reached his eyes. "Is he? And does this mechanic know someone is marking his sister's beautiful face?" Heat rushed to my cheeks, partly from embarrassment, partly from the unexpected compliment embedded in his question. "It's nothing. It's not nothing," he said softly, dangerously. "Men who hit women are cowards. They deserve to be punished." A chill ran through me. There was something in his tone, a promise of violence that should have frightened me but instead made me feel strangely protected. I looked down at my hands, twisted together in my lap. "Tell me his name," Ricci said. "No," I whispered, surprised at my own defiance. "It's not. He doesn't mean to. He just gets angry sometimes." Ricci leaned forward and I instinctively shrank back. He noticed, his eyes darkening. "You defend him. Interesting." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, sliding it across the table. "When you decide you deserve better, call this number." I stared at the card. It was blank except for a phone number printed in elegant black script. "I don't understand." "You will," he replied, standing smoothly. He towered over me, his presence making the spacious room feel suddenly small. "What time do you finish work?" The question caught me off guard. 2 a.m. He nodded once. "My driver will take you home." "That's not necessary." "It wasn't an offer." He cut me off, buttoning his suit jacket. "It's not safe for a woman to travel alone at that hour." Before I could protest further, he walked to the door, pausing with his hand on the handle. "The bruise," he said without turning, "should be treated with arnica. It helps with the swelling." Then he was gone, leaving behind only the scent of expensive cologne and the business card that seemed to burn against my fingertips. The rest of my shift passed in a daze. I kept expecting Ricci to return, but he didn't. The business card felt heavy in my apron pocket, a weight I was acutely aware of with every movement. When 2 a.m. arrived, Marco stopped me before I could grab my coat. "There's a car waiting for you outside," he said, his expression unreadable. "Black Mercedes." "I can take the bus," I insisted. Marco shook his head. "Not tonight, you can't. Go, Sophia. Don't keep him waiting." Outside, the night air was crisp with approaching autumn. True to Marco's word, a sleek black Mercedes idled at the curb, its engine a quiet purr in the night. A driver in a black suit stood beside the rear door, opening it as I approached. I hesitated, clutching my worn handbag to my chest. "Miss Lombardi," the driver said, his voice respectful. "Mr. Ricci insists on your safety." Ricci wasn't in the car, I realized with a mixture of relief and disappointment as I slid into the luxurious leather back seat. The interior smelled of leather and the same cologne Ricci had worn. The driver closed the door and returned to his position behind the wheel. "Your address?" he asked, meeting my eyes in the rearview mirror. I gave him my apartment building's location, in a neighborhood that was worlds away from the elegance of Bellini's clientele. The car pulled smoothly into the late-night traffic of Milan. My phone vibrated in my bag. "Joey," I answered immediately. "Where are you?" His voice was tight with worry. "You should have been home by now." "I'm on my way," I assured him. "Got a ride." "A ride? From who?" The suspicion in his voice was clear. I glanced at the driver, who gave no indication he was listening. "I'll explain when I get home. Everything's fine." "Sophia, listen to me." Joey's voice dropped to a near whisper. "Stay away from Vittorio Ricci. If he's shown any interest in you, any at all, you need to—" The call cut off abruptly. I frowned, checking my phone. No service. Strange. "Problem with your call, miss?" the driver asked. "Lost connection," I muttered, unease growing in my stomach. How did Joey know about Ricci? And why the warning? The car stopped in front of my apartment building, the contrast between the luxury vehicle and the rundown surroundings almost comical. The driver opened my door. "Mr. Ricci would like to know if you'll be working tomorrow night," he said as I stepped out. My heart skipped a beat. "Yes." The driver nodded. "Good night, Miss Lombardi." I watched the Mercedes disappear into the night before turning toward my building. The stairwell light was out again, forcing me to use my phone's flashlight to navigate the 4 flights to my apartment. Joey should be home, probably pacing and waiting for an explanation about the ride and the cutoff call. But when I opened our apartment door, I was met with silence and darkness. "Joey," I called, flipping on the lights. His boots weren't by the door. His jacket wasn't on the hook. I moved through our small apartment, checking each room, a growing sense of dread filling me. His bedroom door was ajar, unusual for my privacy-conscious brother. I pushed it open. The room was in disarray, drawers pulled out, clothes scattered on the floor. Joey's phone lay on the bed, which explained why I couldn't call him back. But my brother was nowhere to be found. On his pillow was a single business card, identical to the one Ricci had given me hours earlier. My hands trembled as I pulled out my own card, comparing them. The same elegant black script, the same phone number. I sank onto Joey's bed, fear closing my throat as the realization dawned. By morning, my brother had vanished, and the only person who might know why was the dangerous man who'd asked me, "Who hit you?" Sleep evaded me that night. I paced our small apartment until dawn broke, alternating between calling Joey's friends and staring at the business card Ricci had given me. None of Joey's friends had seen him, or so they claimed. Their voices had a strange edge to them, a hesitance that felt like fear. By 7 in the morning, my eyes burned from exhaustion and unshed tears. The bruise on my face had darkened further, a cruel reminder of why I'd caught Ricci's attention in the first place. Daniel had texted twice, his messages shifting from angry accusations to honeyed apologies. I ignored them all. The business card seemed to mock me from the kitchen table where I'd placed it. That small rectangle of expensive paper held answers. I was sure of it. But calling the number felt like stepping off a cliff with no knowledge of what waited below. I showered, dressed, and drank 3 cups of coffee, all while stealing glances at the card. By 9, I'd made my decision. With trembling fingers, I dialed the number. 1 ring, 2, 3. Pronto, a man's voice, not Ricci's. I need to speak with Vittorio Ricci, I said, my voice smaller than I'd intended. A pause. Your name? Sophia Lombardi. Another pause, longer this time. 1 moment. The line went silent, not even hold music to fill the void. I paced the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, heart hammering against my ribs. A full minute passed, then 2. Sophia. Ricci's voice, warm and smooth, as if he'd been expecting my call all along. The Italian pronunciation of my name, Sophia instead of Sophia, sent an unexpected shiver down my spine. "Where is my brother?" I demanded, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. Straight to business. I admire that. There was a smile in his voice. "Your brother is safe. I want to see him." "Of course you do." He paused. "Are you at home?" The question sent a jolt of fear through me. "Why?" "Because I'm sending a car. Be ready in 20 minutes. "No, wait." But the line had already gone dead. I stared at the phone in my hand, panic rising in my chest. 20 minutes. What choice did I have? Joey was all the family I had left. If Ricci had him... I changed quickly into my best jeans and a simple blue blouse, applied minimal makeup, and tried to do something with my hair. The bruise stood out starkly against my pale skin, impossible to fully conceal. Exactly 19 minutes after Ricci's call, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Downstairs. The same black Mercedes from last night waited at the curb, the same driver holding open the rear door. This time, however, I wasn't alone in the back seat. Vittorio Ricci sat there, impeccable in another tailored suit, this one a deep navy. His eyes met mine as I hesitated at the car door. "Your brother is waiting," he said simply. I slid into the seat beside him, keeping as much distance as the luxury car would allow. Up close, in daylight, he was even more intimidating, and undeniably handsome. The scar through his eyebrow gave his otherwise perfect features a dangerous edge. His cologne filled the enclosed space, expensive and subtle. "Where are we going?" I asked as the car pulled away from the curb. "My home," he replied, watching me with that same intensity from the restaurant. "Your brother is there." "Why? Why take him? Why any of this?" The questions tumbled out before I could stop them. Ricci studied me for a long moment. "Your brother works for Salvatore Bianchi." "Do you know who that is?" I shook my head, though the name sounded vaguely familiar. "Bianchi controls the drug trade in 3 districts of Milan. He's also my enemy." Ricci's voice remained conversational, as if discussing the weather rather than criminal empires. "Your brother has been collecting information for Bianchi. About my businesses, my movements." My mouth went dry. "Joey is a mechanic." Ricci's lips curved slightly. "He repairs cars, yes, including those belonging to my associates. Very convenient for planting listening devices, wouldn't you agree?" The world seemed to tilt beneath me. Joey, involved with the Mafia, it couldn't be true. And yet, the unexplained cash, the late nights, the vague explanations of side jobs, "He wouldn't," I whispered, but doubt had already taken root. "He did," Ricci countered, not unkindly. For over 6 months, the car turned onto a private road lined with tall cypress trees, eventually stopping before a massive iron gate guarded by armed men. After a brief inspection, we were waved through to a sprawling estate. The villa at its center was a masterpiece of modern architecture blended with classical Italian design. Glass and stone and soaring ceilings. Ricci escorted me inside, his hand barely touching the small of my back, yet somehow burning through the fabric of my blouse. The interior was minimalist but luxurious. Armed men stationed discreetly throughout made no attempt to hide their presence. "Where is Joey?" I asked again, as he led me through a vast living area. "Soon," he promised, guiding me to a sunlit terrace overlooking immaculate gardens. A table had been set for breakfast. Fresh fruit, pastries, coffee. "Sit. Eat something." "You look exhausted." "I'm not hungry." It was a lie. I hadn't eaten since yesterday's lunch shift at the restaurant. Ricci pulled out a chair. "Sit anyway." I sat, if only because my legs felt ready to give out. He took the seat across from me, signaling to a waiting staff member who immediately poured coffee for us both. "Why am I here?" I asked, wrapping my hands around the warm cup. If this is about Joey's work, I knew nothing about it. "I believe you," he said, surprising me. "You're here because your brother asked for you." Hope flared in my chest. "He's okay? Not hurt?" Something flickered in Ricci's dark eyes. Regret, perhaps. "He has been questioned, firmly, but he will recover." Fear turned my blood cold. What does that mean? What did you do to him? What was necessary? Ricci sipped his coffee, his gaze never leaving my face. "Your brother made choices, Sophia, dangerous ones. In my world, those choices have consequences." Tears burned behind my eyes. "Please. He's all I have." "Not anymore," Ricci said quietly. Before I could process what he meant, a side door opened. 2 of Ricci's men entered, supporting Joey between them. My brother's face was bruised, one eye swollen shut, his lips split. He limped heavily as they guided him to a chair at the table. "Joey!" I rushed to him, hands hovering uncertainly over his injuries. "Oh God, what did they do to you?" Joey winced as he settled into the chair. "I'm okay, Soph. It looks worse than it feels." I rounded on Ricci, fury displacing fear. How dare you? You had no right. I had every right. Ricci cut me off, his voice suddenly hard. Your brother betrayed my trust, endangered my people. The traditional punishment would have been much more permanent. Joey grabbed my hand. Sophia, stop. He's right. I knew what I was doing, knew the risks. Salvatore promised good money, protection. His eyes, one bloodshot and damaged, found mine. I did get us out of that neighborhood, away from Daniel. The mention of Daniel's name in front of Ricci made me flinch. Joey noticed, his grip on my hand tightening. Is that why you never did anything about him? I asked softly. Because you were working for Bianchi and couldn't risk drawing attention. Joey nodded, shame evident in his expression. I thought I could handle it all, make enough money to get us out, keep my head down. But then Ricci's men found one of the bugs I'd planted. And here we are. Ricci finished for him, gesturing elegantly at the terrace, the estate, the armed guards. What happens now? I asked, looking between my brother and the dangerous man who had brought us here. Ricci leaned back in his chair, considering us both. I have a proposition, one that benefits everyone at this table. Joey tensed beside me. What kind of proposition? You, Giuseppe Lombardi, will continue your work as a mechanic. But now, you work exclusively for me. You will use the skills that made you valuable to Bianchi to strengthen my security instead. In return, you keep your life. My brother swallowed hard. And Sophia? Ricci's eyes moved to me, so intense I could almost feel the weight of his gaze. Your sister will remain under my protection. To ensure your loyalty, of course. No, I said immediately. I'm not collateral. You misunderstand, Ricci said, his voice softening. My protection means no more bruises from men like Daniel. It means a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. It means a life where you don't have to serve entitled businessmen at Bellini's. Sounds like a gilded cage to me, I countered. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Perhaps. But isn't it better than the cage you're already in? He had a point, though I hated to admit it. My life had become a series of cages. Daniel's abuse, the struggle to pay bills, the dead-end job, the dangerous neighborhood. Was Ricci's cage really worse? At least it came with Joey's safety guaranteed. I need your answer, Sophia, Ricci said, his patience clearly limited. Your brother has already agreed to his part. Joey squeezed my hand. It's going to be okay, Soph. He'll protect you better than I could. Looking at my brother's battered face, I realized we'd run out of options. Whatever game Joey had been playing with Bianchi and Ricci, we'd lost. All that remained was damage control. Fine, I said, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. I accept your protection, but I keep my job at Bellini's. Ricci raised an eyebrow. Why would you want to? Because it's mine, I answered simply. It's the one thing in my life that I chose. He studied me for a long moment, before nodding once. As you wish, but my driver will take you to and from work. No arguments. It wasn't much of a victory, but it was something. A small piece of independence preserved in what was rapidly becoming a life controlled by Vittorio Ricci. There's one more condition, Ricci added, his eyes darkening as they lingered on my bruised cheekbone. Tell me Daniel's full name. A chill ran through me. Why? Tell me, he repeated, his tone making it clear this was non-negotiable. I glanced at Joey, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Daniel Russo. He works at the shipping company on Via Dante. Ricci smiled, a predator's smile that never reached his eyes. Thank you, Sophia. He stood, buttoning his jacket with one fluid motion. Now, I believe we all need to rest. It's been a long night for everyone. As if on cue, the two men who had brought Joey returned to the terrace. Show Miss Lombardi to the East guest suite, Ricci instructed them, and take her brother to the doctor for a final check before allowing him to rest. Wait, I protested. I'm staying here? For how long? Until your new apartment is ready, Ricci replied smoothly. 3 days, perhaps 4. Consider it a vacation. As the men led Joey away, Ricci caught my arm gently, leaning close enough that I could feel his breath against my ear. Daniel Russo won't hurt you again, he whispered. I promise you that, Sophia Lombardi. The certainty in his voice sent a shiver down my spine, not entirely from fear. The East Guest Suite was larger than my entire apartment, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the manicured gardens and a bathroom that could have housed a small family. I spent hours simply staring out at the view, trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Joey was given a room in another wing of the villa. I was allowed to see him briefly that evening, but he was heavily sedated after the doctor's treatment. Broken ribs, the stoic medical professional had informed me. Minor concussion. He'll heal. The clinical assessment did nothing to ease my guilt. Joey had suffered this because of me, because he'd been trying to make enough money to get us away from Daniel. I didn't see Ricci again that day. A stern-faced housekeeper named Alessandra brought me clothes, all in my size, which was unsettling, and informed me that Il Signore would see me at breakfast the following morning. Sleep came in fitful bursts, my dreams haunted by dark eyes and business cards, and Joey's battered face. I woke before dawn, showering in the luxurious marble bathroom, before selecting the most modest outfit from the provided wardrobe, black pants, and a simple cream blouse. I pinned my hair back, applied minimal makeup, and waited for whatever came next in this strange new reality. At precisely 8, Alessandra knocked on my door. "Breakfast is served on the main terrace, Miss Lombardi." I followed her through the labyrinthine villa, noting the tasteful art adorning the walls, the subtle security cameras in every corridor, the armed men stationed at key points. This was a beautiful fortress, designed to keep threats out and perhaps certain people in. Vittorio Ricci sat at the same table as yesterday, reading something on a sleek tablet. He stood when he saw me, a gesture so formal and old-world that it momentarily threw me off balance. "Buongiorno, Sofia," he said, pulling out a chair for me. "Did you sleep well?" "As well as can be expected," I replied, taking the offered seat. "How was Joey today?" Ricci sat across from me, signaling to a waiting staff member who immediately began serving coffee and pastries. "Your brother is recovering. The doctor is with him now." His eyes moved to my cheekbone, where the bruise had begun to fade slightly. "I see you found the arnica cream I had left in your bathroom." I touched the bruise self-consciously. "Yes. Thank you." He nodded once, satisfied, and returned to his breakfast. We ate in silence for several minutes. The only sounds the distant chirping of birds and the occasional rustle of guards shifting positions around the perimeter of the terrace. "Your new apartment will be ready tomorrow," Ricci said eventually. "In Brera. I think you'll find it suitable." Brera, one of Milan's most exclusive neighborhoods, with its art galleries and upscale boutiques, light years away from my current reality. "That's very generous." "It's necessary," he corrected. "My associates live in certain neighborhoods. It's expected." I set down my coffee cup. "And that's what I am now? Your associate?" A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "For now, let's say you're under my protection." "And what does that mean exactly? What are the rules of this arrangement?" Ricci studied me for a long moment. "You may continue working at Bellini's as we agreed. My driver will take you to and from work. You will not contact Daniel Russo or respond if he attempts to contact you. If you need anything at all, you call the number on the card I gave you." "That's it?" I asked skeptically. "For now." He folded his napkin precisely. "Though I would like to request the pleasure of your company for dinner occasionally." The word request seemed at odds with the man before me, who clearly wasn't accustomed to being denied. "And if I refuse?" Ricci's eyes darkened slightly. "You won't." Before I could respond, his phone vibrated on the table. He glanced at it, his expression hardening instantly. "Excuse me," he said, standing. "A matter requires my attention. Please, finish your breakfast. Alessandra will show you to your brother when you're ready." He left with swift, purposeful strides, barking rapid Italian into his phone as he disappeared into the villa. I sat alone on the terrace, surrounded by luxury and beauty, and the persistent feeling of being trapped. After breakfast, Alessandra led me to Joey's room. My brother looked better than yesterday, though the bruising around his eye had darkened considerably. He sat propped up in bed, his torso heavily bandaged beneath a loose t-shirt. "Hey, Soph," he said, attempting a smile that turned into a wince. I sat carefully on the edge of his bed. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. He shifted, grimacing. But I'll live. Ricci's doctor knows his stuff. I took his hand, noting the bandages around his wrists. Joey, what have you gotten us into? He looked away. I didn't mean for you to get involved. That was never the plan. What was the plan? Working for a drug dealer? Spying on Ricci? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Do you realize how dangerous these people are? Of course I do, he snapped, then immediately softened. I'm sorry. It's just... Bianchi approached me 6 months ago. One of his guys brought in a Ferrari for repairs, saw I had skills. They offered good money to install some custom modifications, bugs, GPS trackers. It seemed simple at first. He swallowed hard. Then they asked me to plant devices in cars that came into the shop belonging to Ricci's people. And you didn't think that might be risky? I did it for us, Sophia. His eyes, one still swollen, filled with tears. To get enough money saved so we could move somewhere better. Somewhere Daniel couldn't find you. The mention of Daniel sent a familiar chill down my spine. Speaking of... Have you heard anything? Joey's expression changed, something dark flitting across his features. No. But Ricci asked me a lot of questions about him yesterday. A knock at the door interrupted us. Alessandra entered, her face impassive as always. Miss Lombardi, Il Signore requests your presence in his study. Joey squeezed my hand. Be careful, Soph. Ricci may seem civilized, but remember what he is. I nodded, kissing my brother's forehead before following Alessandra through the villa. She left me outside a heavy wooden door, knocking once before disappearing down the corridor. Enter! Ricci's voice called from within. The study was everything I expected. Leather-bound books, antique desk, the scent of cigars and leather. What I didn't expect was the man kneeling on the floor, face bloody and swollen, hands bound behind his back. Ricci stood behind his desk, jacket removed and sleeves rolled up, revealing powerful forearms marked with faint scars. 2 guards flanked the kneeling man. My breath caught in my throat as the man looked up, his terrified eyes meeting mine. Daniel. Ah, Sophia, Ricci said, his voice deceptively casual. I apologize for the unpleasant scene. I wasn't expecting you quite so soon. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. Daniel's face was barely recognizable through the blood and swelling. His left eye was completely closed, his lips split in multiple places. Sophia, Daniel whimpered. Help me, please. Ricci moved around the desk with fluid grace, coming to stand beside me. Daniel and I have been having a conversation about respecting women, about consequences. My legs trembled beneath me. What are you going to do to him? That, Ricci said softly, depends on you. On me? He nodded, dark eyes studying my reaction. This man marked your beautiful face. He hurt what belongs to me. The traditional punishment would be severe. I don't belong to you, I whispered, even as something deep inside me responded to his possessive words. A small smile curved his lips. Not yet. But you accepted my protection, Sophia, and I protect what's mine. Daniel sobbed on the floor. I'm sorry, Sophia. I never meant... I just get so angry sometimes. You know how I am. Ricci's expression hardened, his jaw tightening. Silence, he commanded, not even looking at Daniel. The room fell instantly quiet except for Daniel's ragged breathing. What do you want from me? I asked Ricci. Justice, he replied simply. Tell me what should happen to him. His fate is in your hands. I stared at Daniel, the man who had terrorized me for nearly a year, who had left bruises on my body and scars on my soul. Now he knelt broken and bleeding, at the mercy of a man far more dangerous than he could ever be. Let him go, I said finally. Ricci raised an eyebrow. After what he did to you, let him go, I repeated, finding strength in my voice. But make it clear that if he ever comes near me again, if he ever tries to contact me, I paused, surprised by my own next words. If he ever touches another woman, you'll finish this conversation. Something like respect flickered in Ricci's eyes. He turned to Daniel. You hear that? She's showing you mercy, more than you deserve. He leaned down, his voice dropping to a deadly whisper. But I am not so forgiving. If I ever see your face again, if I hear you've raised your hand to any woman, I will remove that hand. Understood?" Daniel nodded frantically, tears mixing with blood on his face. Ricci straightened, addressing his men. "Take him to the gate. Make sure he understands the conditions of his parole." The guards hauled Daniel to his feet and dragged him from the room. As the door closed behind them, Ricci turned to me. "You surprise me, Sofia Lombardi," he said softly. "Most would have wanted revenge. This isn't mercy," I replied. "Living in fear of you is punishment enough." He moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat radiating from his body. "Are you afraid of me, Sophia?" "Yes," I admitted, "but not in the way Daniel should be." Ricci reached up slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers gently traced the outline of the bruise on my cheekbone. "No man will ever mark you again," he promised, his voice rough with emotion. "Not while I breathe." The intensity in his eyes should have frightened me. Instead, it made something warm unfurl in my chest, something I hadn't felt in a very long time. Safety. "Why me?" I whispered. "You could protect anyone. Why choose me?" His thumb brushed lightly across my lower lip. "Because when I saw you in that restaurant, trying so hard to hide your pain, to remain invisible, I recognized something in you, something I once saw in myself." "What?" "Survival," he said simply. "The will to endure, to bend without breaking." His hand moved to cup my cheek. "You are stronger than you know, Sofia Lombardi." I should have stepped away, should have maintained distance from this dangerous man whose world I'd been unwillingly pulled into. Instead, I leaned into his touch, just slightly, my eyes fluttering closed for the briefest moment. When I opened them again, Ricci was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, hunger mixed with something softer, almost tender. "Go to your brother," he said, dropping his hand. "I have business to attend to, but tonight, you will join me for dinner. 8 o'clock. It wasn't a request, but somehow I didn't mind. The dress was a deep burgundy, the color of rich wine, or blood. It hung in the closet of my suite, alongside other garments I hadn't selected, all in my exact size. This one had been specifically laid out for dinner, with a handwritten note from Alessandra. "Il Signore suggests this one." I slipped it on, the silk caressing my skin like water. It fit perfectly, hugging my curves before falling gracefully to just above my knees. The neckline was modest, but flattering, the back dipping just low enough to be elegant without being risque. With my dark hair swept up and minimal jewelry, simple diamond studs that had also mysteriously appeared on my vanity, I hardly recognized the woman in the mirror. The bruise on my face had faded considerably, thanks to the arnica cream and time. With careful makeup application, it was now barely visible, a ghost of what Daniel had done, disappearing a little more each day. At precisely 5 minutes to 8, Alessandra knocked on my door. "Il Signore awaits you in the dining room." I followed her through the villa's corridors, my heartbeat quickening with each step. Something had shifted between Ricci and me in his study that afternoon. A boundary crossed, an understanding reached. I wasn't sure what awaited me at dinner, but I knew it would be a turning point. The dining room was intimate despite its grandeur, with a table set for two and candles casting a warm glow over the space. Ricci stood as I entered, his eyes moving appreciatively over me. "Sei bellissima," he said softly. "You are beautiful." "Grazie," I replied, one of the few Italian words I knew with confidence. He held out my chair, waiting until I was seated before taking his own place. A server immediately appeared, pouring wine and presenting the first course. A delicate seafood appetizer. "I checked on your brother earlier," Ricci said, lifting his glass. "The doctor is pleased with his progress. He should be able to move around more tomorrow." Relief washed over me. "Thank you. For taking care of him, I mean. Despite..." I trailed off, not wanting to reference the reason for Joey's injuries. "Your brother made a mistake," Ricci acknowledged. "But he has paid for it, and now he works for me. The past is settled." We ate in comfortable silence for a few moments before I gathered the courage to ask the question that had been bothering me all day. What happened to Daniel after he left here? Ricci's expression remained neutral. He was escorted to the city limits and encouraged to remember our conversation. And Salvatore Bianchi? Won't he be looking for Joey? A cold smile played at the corners of Ricci's mouth. Bianchi has been informed that Giuseppe Lombardi is now under my protection. He won't interfere. Just like that? Just like that, Ricci confirmed. There are rules to our world, Sophia. Lines that aren't crossed. Taking my mechanic would cross one of those lines. I twirled the wine glass between my fingers. And what about me? What line do I represent? His eyes darkened, pinning me in place. You are a different matter entirely. The second course arrived, risotto with wild mushrooms, giving me a moment to collect myself under his intense gaze. Tell me about yourself, Ricci said as we continued eating. Before Bellini's, before Daniel. The request caught me off guard. No one had asked about my past in a long time. There's not much to tell. My parents died when I was 19. Car accident. Joey was 16. I dropped out of university to take care of him. Worked whatever jobs I could find. We moved to Milan 3 years ago when Joey got the mechanic position. And what were you studying before you had to leave? Art history, I admitted, somewhat embarrassed by how impractical it seemed. I wanted to work in a museum or gallery. Something like surprise flickered across Ricci's face. You never pursued it again? I shook my head. There was never time, or money. Life became about survival. Survival, he echoed, the word heavy with meaning between us. You've done more than survive, Sophia. You've protected your brother, worked honestly, maintained your dignity in difficult circumstances. He leaned forward slightly. Do you know how rare that is? That strength? Warmth bloomed in my chest at his words. When was the last time anyone had seen strength in me rather than weakness? Daniel had systematically eroded my confidence over our year together, making me believe I was lucky he wanted me at all. What about you? I asked, deflecting his praise. How did you become... I gestured vaguely at our surroundings, at the armed guards visible through the windows patrolling the estate. A monster? He supplied, his tone lightening slightly. I didn't say that. He smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his face, making him look younger, almost boyish. But you thought it. I couldn't deny it. I'm trying to understand all of this. I gestured between us. Why you've brought me into your world. Ricci set down his fork, considering me thoughtfully. I was born into this life, Sophia. My father was capo before me, his father before him. I had no choice about the family I was born into, but I've made choices about how I run it. Unlike Bianchi, I don't deal in drugs or human trafficking. My businesses are largely legitimate: real estate, finance, import, export. Largely, I repeated, emphasizing the qualifier. A corner of his mouth quirked upward. There are aspects that operate in gray areas, yes, but there are lines I don't cross. The third course arrived, a perfectly cooked sea bass, along with a fresh bottle of wine. And what about women? I asked, emboldened by the wine and his apparent openness. Where do they fit in your world? His expression grew serious. My mother was the heart of our family until cancer took her 5 years ago. She taught me that a man's treatment of women reveals his true character. In our world, women are either respected or they are not. There is no middle ground. And which am I? I challenged, my voice softer than intended. Ricci's eyes locked with mine, intense and unwavering. You, Sophia Lombardi, are the first woman since my mother who has made me question my carefully constructed world. The admission hung between us, heavy with implication. I looked down at my plate, suddenly unable to maintain eye contact with the force of his gaze. Tomorrow you move to the apartment in Brera, he said, changing the subject. I've arranged for a car to take you to Bellini's for your evening shift. I'd almost forgotten about work, about the real world outside these walls. Thank you. One of my men will accompany you, discreetly, for your protection. Is that necessary? Daniel won't... It's not Daniel I'm concerned about. Ricci interrupted. Bianchi may see you as a way to get to your brother, or to me. The reminder of the dangerous world I'd been pulled into sent a chill down my spine. This is my life now, isn't it? Looking over my shoulder, being guarded, worrying about rivals and enemies I don't even know. Ricci reached across the table, his hand covering mine. His touch was warm, his fingers strong yet gentle. For now, yes, but I promise you, Sophia, you will adjust. And you will find there are compensations. Such as? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper, acutely aware of his hand still covering mine. Security, comfort, freedom from fear. His thumb stroked the inside of my wrist, sending shivers up my arm. And perhaps, in time, something more. The air between us seemed charged, electric with possibility. I should have pulled my hand away, maintained some boundary between us. Instead, I turned my palm upward, my fingers intertwining with his, almost of their own volition. I don't know if I can be what you want, I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. And what do you think I want? He asked, his voice low and intimate. A woman who accepts this world without question, who looks the other way when necessary, who doesn't mind the danger. Ricci's grip tightened slightly. What I want, Sophia, is a woman who sees me. Not the power, not the danger, but me. A woman with the strength to stand beside me, not behind me. A woman who challenges me, like you've done since the moment I asked who hit you, and you dared to lie to my face. A small laugh escaped me. That wasn't bravery. That was fear. Sometimes they're the same thing. He released my hand as dessert arrived. A delicate panna cotta with fresh berries. Enough serious talk for tonight. Tomorrow begins your new life. Let's enjoy this moment. We finished our meal with lighter conversation. Ricci asked about my favorite art, seeming genuinely interested in my passionate, if somewhat rusty, knowledge of Renaissance painters. I learned he had studied economics at Oxford before being called home when his father fell ill. He made me laugh with stories of his childhood in this very villa, running from his tutors to hide in the gardens. By the time coffee was served, I felt strangely at ease with this complicated man, part ruthless crime boss, part cultured gentleman, altogether dangerous to my heart and soul. As if reading my thoughts, Ricci set down his cup. You're wondering if you're making a terrible mistake, getting too comfortable with the devil. I didn't deny it. Aren't I? Perhaps, he acknowledged. But consider this. You've spent a year with a man who hurt you, who made you small. Who's the real devil in that comparison? Before I could answer, his phone vibrated on the table. He checked it, his expression immediately hardening into the mask of the powerful capo. I must attend to this, he said, standing, but the night is too beautiful to waste. Would you walk with me in the gardens before retiring? I nodded, rising from my chair. Ricci offered his arm, a formal gesture that felt both old-fashioned and right. I slipped my hand into the crook of his elbow, feeling the solid strength of him beneath the expensive fabric of his suit. The gardens were illuminated by subtle lighting along the pathways, the October air crisp but not uncomfortable. We walked in silence, my mind racing with everything that had happened, everything that had been said. Your thoughts are very loud, Ricci commented, as we paused beside a fountain. I'm trying to reconcile the man who had Daniel beaten with the man who knows about Renaissance art and treats his mother's memory with such reverence. Ricci turned to face me, his expression serious in the moonlight. They are the same man, Sophia. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. I've done things that would horrify you. I'll likely do them again, but never without reason, never without honor. Is there honor in your world? I asked softly. In my world, it's all that separates us from true monsters. He reached up, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face with unexpected tenderness. I won't lie to you, Sophia, ever. That's my promise. As his hand lingered on my cheek, I found myself leaning closer, drawn to him despite everything I knew, everything I feared. His eyes dropped to my lips, his intention clear. The moment hung between us, fragile and charged. I knew if I let him kiss me, there would be no going back. I would be choosing this world, this life, this dangerous man. As if sensing my hesitation, Ricci stepped back slightly. "It's late. You should rest. Tomorrow will bring many changes." Disappointment and relief warred within me, as he offered his arm again to escort me back to my suite. At my door, he lifted my hand to his lips, placing a gentle kiss on my knuckles. "Buona notte, Sophia," he murmured against my skin. "Dream of possibilities." As I closed the door behind me, I leaned against it, heart racing. I was falling for Vittorio Ricci, a man who commanded fear and respect in equal measure, who had beaten my brother and saved me from Daniel, who offered protection with one hand and danger with the other. And the most frightening part? I wasn't sure I wanted to stop falling. My new apartment in Brera was a dream, spacious and elegant with high ceilings, gleaming hardwood floors, and windows that flooded the space with natural light. The furniture was minimalist but luxurious, the kitchen outfitted with appliances I didn't know how to use, the bathroom a marble sanctuary. Everything about it whispered wealth and taste. "This is too much," I said to Joey as we explored the space together. My brother was still moving stiffly, his ribs wrapped tightly beneath his shirt, but the swelling around his eye had gone down considerably. "It's exactly what you deserve, Soph," he replied, running his hand over the smooth countertop. "After everything you've been through." I gave him a pointed look. "You mean after everything Ricci put us through?" Joey sighed, easing himself onto one of the bar stools at the kitchen island. "I'm the one who got us into this mess, remember? Working for Bianchi, planting those bugs. Ricci could have killed me, should have by their rules. Instead, he gave me a job, an apartment down the hall from you, and his protection. Because he wants something from me," I said quietly. A knowing look crossed Joey's face. "You like him." "That's not—" "It's okay if you do," he interrupted. "I've seen how he looks at you, like you're the most fascinating thing he's ever encountered." Heat rose to my cheeks. "He's dangerous, Joey. So is crossing the street in Milan." My brother countered with a shrug, then winced at the movement. "At least with Ricci, the danger comes with security, and he obviously cares about you." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Car will arrive at 5 p.m. for your shift at Bellini's. V. Not Vittorio or Ricci, just V." The intimacy of it sent a small thrill through me, which I immediately tried to suppress. Joey raised an eyebrow at my expression. "Him?" I nodded, tucking the phone away. "He's sending a car for my shift tonight. See, taking care of you." Joey stood carefully. "I should go. I start at Ricci's garage tomorrow morning." I hugged him gently, mindful of his injuries. "Be careful, Joey." "You too, Soph." He gave me a meaningful look. "With your heart, I mean." After he left, I wandered through my new home, still trying to process everything. My few belongings from the old apartment had been moved here, looking strangely out of place among the luxury. My worn paperbacks lined one shelf of the otherwise empty bookcase, my faded throw blanket draped over the pristine sofa. At precisely 5, the doorbell rang. A serious-faced man in a black suit stood in the hallway. "Miss Lombardi, I'm Paolo. I'll be accompanying you to Bellini's tonight." The black Mercedes was waiting downstairs. As we drove through Milan's evening traffic, I found myself searching the back seat, half expecting Ricci to be there as he had been yesterday morning. But I was alone, save for Paolo in the front seat and the driver. Arriving at Bellini's in a chauffeur-driven Mercedes with a bodyguard raised eyebrows among the staff. Marco, the floor manager, pulled me aside immediately. "What's going on, Sophia? First Vittorio Ricci asks for you personally. Now you arrive like this?" I kept my expression neutral. "I've moved apartments. A friend arranged transportation." Marco looked skeptical but didn't press further. "You're on main floor tonight. Tables 12 through 16. The shift passed in a blur of familiar motions. Taking orders, serving dishes, clearing tables. Several times I felt Paolo's watchful eyes from his position at the bar, where he nursed a single glass of water all evening. He wasn't obvious about his surveillance, but I was acutely aware of his presence. Just before midnight, Marco appeared at my elbow as I was inputting an order. "Ricci is here," he whispered urgently. "Table 20. He's asking for you." My heart skipped a beat as I turned toward table 20. Sure enough, Vittorio Ricci sat there, impeccable in a charcoal suit. 2 guards positioned discreetly nearby. Our eyes met across the restaurant, and he inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement. "I'll take over your other tables," Marco said, practically pushing me in Ricci's direction. "Don't keep him waiting." I approached Ricci's table, conscious of curious stares from both staff and patrons. He stood as I neared, a gesture of respect that wasn't lost on anyone watching. "Sophia," he greeted me, his voice warm. "I hope I'm not interrupting your work." "Not at all," I replied, hyper-aware of our audience. "Can I get you something, Mr. Ricci?" A ghost of a smile played on his lips at my formality. "Just a moment of your time. When is your break?" "In about 20 minutes." He nodded. "I'll wait." For the next 20 minutes I worked on autopilot, my mind racing. Why was he here? What did he want to discuss that couldn't wait until after my shift? When my break finally came, Marco practically shoved me toward the staff exit. "He's waiting in the alley. Private conversation," he said. Sure enough, Ricci stood in the alley behind Bellini's, his driver keeping the Mercedes running a few feet away. No guards were visible, though I suspected they weren't far. "I apologize for the dramatic setting," Ricci said as I approached. "But I needed to speak with you privately." "Is something wrong?" "Joey, your brother is fine," he assured me quickly. "This is about another matter, a potentially dangerous one." Alarm coursed through me. "What is it?" "Salvatore Bianchi has been asking questions about you," Ricci said, his expression grave. "My sources tell me he's discovered our connection." "What does that mean?" Ricci stepped closer, his voice dropping. "It means he may see you as a way to strike at me. I've doubled security at your apartment building, but I'm concerned about you working here. It's too exposed, too public." I crossed my arms, suddenly cold despite the mild night. "Are you asking me to quit?" "I'm asking you to consider it," he corrected. "For your safety. This job is all I have that's still mine," I said softly. "The one thing in my life that hasn't been completely upended." Ricci's expression softened. "I understand that, but your safety must come first. I can't hide forever. I can't live in a cage, even a beautiful one." He reached out, his fingers brushing my arm lightly. "What if I offered an alternative? A position at the Ricci Foundation's art collection, managing acquisitions, organizing exhibitions, using that art history education you never got to finish." I stared at him, stunned. "You're offering me a job? Working with art?" "It would be safer than here, and perhaps more fulfilling." His eyes searched mine. "Say yes, Sophia." The offer was tempting, so tempting it made my heart ache. To work with art again, to use the knowledge I'd abandoned when my parents died. "I need to think about it," I said finally. He nodded, not pushing further. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He checked his watch. "Your break is nearly over. I won't keep you." As I turned to go back inside, he caught my hand. "Sophia." I looked back at him, caught by the intensity in his dark eyes. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night," he said. "At your apartment. I'll cook." The image of Vittorio Ricci, dangerous mafia boss, cooking in my kitchen was so unexpected I almost laughed. "You cook?" A genuine smile transformed his face. "My mother insisted all her children learn. She said it was the best way to ensure we'd never go hungry if the family fortune disappeared overnight." "Wise woman," I murmured. "Is that a yes?" I hesitated only a moment before nodding. "Yes." His smile widened, making him look younger, almost carefree. 8 o'clock. I'll bring everything we need." The rest of my shift passed in a daze, my mind alternating between concern over Bianchi's interest in me and anticipation of tomorrow's dinner. When Paolo escorted me back to the car at 2 a.m., I noticed he was even more vigilant than earlier, his eyes constantly scanning our surroundings. "Is something wrong?" I asked as we drove through Milan's nearly empty streets. "Just a precaution, Miss Lombardi," he replied, but the tension in his shoulders told me otherwise. We arrived at my new apartment building without incident. Paolo insisted on escorting me all the way to my door, checking the apartment before leaving me with strict instructions to lock up and call immediately if I noticed anything unusual. Sleep eluded me that night, my dreams haunted by shadowy figures, and the constant feeling of being watched. I woke early, exhausted, but too restless to go back to sleep. After showering and dressing in casual jeans and a sweater, I decided to explore my new neighborhood. I texted Paolo first, as instructed. He replied immediately that he would meet me in the lobby in 10 minutes. I bit back my frustration at needing a babysitter, but understood the necessity given Ricci's warning about Bianchi. Brera was beautiful in the morning light. Elegant buildings, fashionable boutiques just opening for the day, cafes with outdoor seating despite the October chill. Paolo kept a discreet distance as I wandered, allowing me the illusion of independence while maintaining his vigilant watch. I stopped at a small cafe for coffee, choosing a table with a view of the street. Paolo positioned himself nearby, his attention focused outward rather than on me. As I sipped my cappuccino, I found myself wondering if this would be my life now. Beautiful, but constrained. Safe, but watched. Was the security worth the freedom I'd sacrificed? My phone buzzed with a text. Looking forward to tonight. Any food allergies I should know about? V. The message made me smile despite my melancholy thoughts. I replied, no allergies. Surprise me. His response came quickly. I always do. Those 3 words carried such promise, such danger. I put the phone away, my heart racing inexplicably. After finishing my coffee, I continued exploring, eventually finding a small bookstore tucked between 2 designer boutiques. I lost myself among the shelves, the familiar smell of books comforting in its normalcy. I selected a few art history volumes, a novel I'd been meaning to read, and a cookbook, a small act of domesticity for my new home. As I approached the register, I felt it again, that prickle of awareness, the sensation of being watched. I glanced toward the window, expecting to see Paolo. Instead, a dark sedan was parked across the street, a man in sunglasses staring directly at me through the bookstore window. He wasn't one of Ricci's men. I knew that instantly, though I couldn't have explained how. There was something different in his posture, his attention too obvious, too threatening. I turned away quickly, keeping my head down as I paid for my books. With shaking hands, I texted Paolo. Dark sedan across street, man watching me. Not sure, but feels wrong. Paolo appeared beside me in seconds, his hand beneath his jacket where I knew he carried a weapon. Act normal, he murmured, taking the shopping bag from me. We're going to walk out together, laughing like old friends. Get in the car immediately when we reach it. I nodded, forcing a smile as we exited the bookstore. Paolo put his arm around my shoulders, an intimacy that would have bothered me under normal circumstances, but now felt protective. We walked briskly down the street, Paolo guiding me toward where his car was parked. A glance over my shoulder confirmed the man from the sedan was following us, joined now by a second man. They weren't even trying to be subtle. They're following, I whispered to Paolo. I know. Keep walking. His grip tightened slightly. Almost there. We reached the car, Paolo practically shoving me into the back seat before jumping into the driver's position. The engine roared to life, and we pulled away from the curb with a squeal of tires. Are they following? I asked, turning to look out the rear window. Yes. Calling for backup now, Paolo replied, pressing a button on the dashboard. He spoke rapid Italian into what must have been a built-in communication system, his voice tense but controlled. We weaved through traffic, Paolo driving with aggressive precision. The sedan stayed behind us, matching our every turn. My heart pounded in my chest as Paolo took a sharp right, then an immediate left, trying to lose our pursuers. Who are they? I asked, gripping the door handle as we took another corner too fast. Bianchi's men, Paolo confirmed grimly. Hold on. He made a sudden U-turn, causing horns to blare around us. For a moment, I thought we'd lost the sedan, but it appeared again in the side mirror, still in pursuit. Paolo cursed under his breath, accelerating through a yellow light, just as it turned red. The sedan followed, nearly colliding with a delivery truck. We sped through narrow streets, Paolo's knuckles white on the steering wheel. And then suddenly, salvation. 2 black SUVs appeared ahead, blocking the road. Paolo drove straight toward them, swerving at the last moment to squeeze past. The sedan, following too closely, had to brake hard to avoid collision. In that moment of hesitation, men poured from the SUVs, weapons drawn. Paolo continued driving, and I caught only a glimpse of Bianchi's men being surrounded before we turned a corner and the scene disappeared from view. Ricci's men? I asked, my voice shaking. Paolo nodded. They'll handle it. We're going straight to Il Signore now. 20 minutes later, we arrived at Ricci's villa. Paolo escorted me inside, where Ricci waited in the entrance hall, his expression thunderous. Are you hurt? He demanded, crossing to me in 3 long strides. No, I'm fine, I assured him, though my hands still trembled. Just shaken. Ricci turned to Paolo, who gave a brief report in Italian, too rapid for me to follow. With each word, Ricci's expression darkened further. When Paolo finished, Ricci dismissed him with a nod. This changes everything, Ricci said once we were alone. Bianchi has crossed a line targeting you directly. What happens now? I asked, hugging myself against a sudden chill. Ricci's eyes were cold, his jaw set in a hard line. Now I end this, once and for all. As he pulled me into his arms, holding me tightly against him, I knew with absolute certainty that by tomorrow, Salvatore Bianchi would no longer be a threat. And I found, to my surprise, that I didn't care what that meant, what lines Ricci would cross to ensure my safety, because in his arms, for the first time since my brother vanished that fateful night, I felt truly, completely safe, and I never wanted to let that feeling go. I choose you, I whispered against his chest. I choose this life. Ricci pulled back slightly, his hands coming up to frame my face. Are you certain? Once you step fully into my world, there's no going back. I met his gaze steadily. I'm certain. No more hiding. No more pretending I don't feel what I feel for you. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Say it again. I choose you, Vittorio, I repeated, using his first name for the first time. All of you. The danger, the protection, everything. With a sound like a growl, he captured my lips with his. The kiss was everything I'd imagined and more. Passionate yet tender, demanding yet giving. His arms tightened around me, pulling me against the hard planes of his body as mine melded to his. When we finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, he rested his forehead against mine. Ti proteggerò sempre, he murmured. I will always protect you. And as he led me deeper into his villa, his hand warm and secure around mine, I knew that whatever came next, whatever dangers Bianchi posed, whatever challenges awaited us, I had found my place, not in a cage, but at the side of a man who saw my strength when others saw only vulnerability. A man who, when he saw my bruises, had asked, "Who hit you?" and then had made sure it would never happen again.